Hello there guys, Cena Mangaki here doing another episode of the Groups Worlds recap. This is going to be the fifth episode for the fifth day of the group stages for the championship, and it's going to be looking all at the, because this is all we have to work off today, Group A finishes up their second round robin, and so we're going to be looking very briefly at some of the games that were played just because some of the games were indicative to a couple things that I think we'll start to see within the meta at Worlds, but we're going to mainly focus on kind of like the stories of the teams within this group as this group comes together, rounds itself out, finishes up playing against each other, and we're going to go on from there. It's a very important group with a lot of different kind of stories coming on into it. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and briefly go over the games, and we're going to start off with the first match of the day, just going in the order as we usually do, and that is going to be CLG versus the Coup Tigers, and I feel like this particular game really just sets the tone for the rest of the group series, especially against CLG, or for CLG rather. This day in particular, we need to note that the Coup Tigers basically play the same comp in every game. They get their hands on Azir for the mid lane in Kuro. It's not a champion that he's done well on back in the LCK. He's got like a very poor win rate on it. A lot of those losses are to SK Telecom. That's like when he like really starts to bring up this champion for some point, but I think that he's just really trying to, you know, say like, hey, look, my Azir is a threat, you know, and it's an okay Azir, but it's not anything special to write home about. And then you get Smeb on Darius, and then Prey, he plays a couple of different AD carries, Gorilla has a couple different supports, and then Hojin is kind of like, you know, just playing with the junglers he normally likes to play. We see Rek'Sai, Elise, and I want to say Lee Sin in one game, but I think it might have just been Elise and Rek'Sai. So, coming into this game, this is another stomp in the hands of Coup Tigers. Coup showing that they knew exactly how to handle CLG in their previous meeting, and then CLG doing virtually nothing to change their overall approach to the game, how they're trying to play the game out, and so Coup once again just absolutely destroyed them. CLG is going for a bruiser on Zion, Pobelter on the zoning mid laner for sieges, double lift on the fast pushing AD carry, and it once again just gets dismantled apart. I mean, this is just a very brutal game to start the day, and I think that this really just puts CLG into a poor mindset for the day, given how they came into the tournament, but that is going to be discussed a little later within it. This is some excellent Tom Kench play. We saw it be played last week. I want to say it was AHQ, but maybe it was the Flash Wolves. I can't recall exactly. I want to say one of the Taiwanese teams played it. I'm inclined to say AHQ, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. And this is the second time we see it, and Gorilla has a really good performance on it, and he really shows the strength of this champion. He saves Prey a lot, as you know, some of the CC and some of the spells that are targeted for him that would absolutely either chunk him or kill him, or just completely denied. With him eating Prey, making him untargetable. I mean, it makes a really good case for unbenching the Kench, something that I have not exactly warmed up to until I've seen, okay, this is how you play the Kench, this is where his strengths are. It's very good for those mid to late game team fights, and again, just Coup really showing off. There's also a very good Darius game. I felt like Darius has been an underwhelming pick so far at Worlds, but Smeb just really makes a case for how strong the champion can be when placed into players who is as good, if not better, than Smeb's hands. So that's quite a lot to say. And again, it basically is just stomp. CLG really don't put up much of a fight, and I feel like this is going to have huge ramifications for CLG's group performance. The next game to talk about is Flash Wolves versus Pain. This one's pretty messy. It is almost goes in way of Pain Gaming. They almost take the game off. They show a couple issues when it comes to committing to some of their decisions in the macro play. Pain could have gone for this like really easy Baron, but they back off of it when they have the advantage, when they could take it, and that actually opens up the opportunity for Flash Wolves to respond by taking that Baron and turn the game around. It's a very messy game. It's a very, very chaotic game. That, you know, I mean, even at one point, Stake teleports into Pain's base to try and solo Nexus. He chickens out from it, though. It's like, dude, you have a Lich Bane. It's just Sir T ulting back to defend the fountain. You can totally two-hit that thing. You got your flash, you got your ultimate, you got Lulu shields, whimsy speed. Just hit that Nexus city. Backs on out, and, you know, the play falls flat. Unfortunately, Flash Wolves are able to ensure that Pain doesn't get a huge play off of it, and they close the game. Again, it's a very messy game. A lot of just like indecisive shot calling, and you know, this is in part it's Pain, you know, just doing a really good job to stay in this game, doing their best to kind of fight through it, not pulling the trigger in a couple times that they should have. Flash Wolves do a very good job of keeping Kami down. They get onto him often in this game, get several kills onto him, and they do a good job eventually closing it out, although they showed some of the issues when it comes to being decisive with their shot calling as well. It's a very wild and chaotic game to look at. The next game to briefly discuss, is this the one where, no, okay. The next game to talk about, if I recall correctly, is Pain. It's not Pain versus CLG, but I want to say Pain versus Q is the next one. Pain play 2 games in a row, so that's how it went. So once again, we see the same thing coming out of the Q Tigers. It is Azir, it is Elise, it is Darius, and then the bottom lane changes up. We see Prey on Mordekaiser. Pain lets that ban go through. Q first picks it. And we also see Gorilla lock in his Leona, something that he's been reportedly playing in solo queue quite a bit. Pain Gaming go for a little bit different comp. They take BRTT's Kalista, or RX's Kalista rather. They take Kami, Victor for Kami, and they also take Lissandra now. Initially, it looks like it could have been a counter pick into the Azir. I think she does favorably well on the lane matchup against Azir just in the 1v1, but it goes into the top lane trying to be a soft counter to Smeb, and that doesn't work. Hojin just gets an early gank in. He sets Mylon behind, gives Smeb the advantage. Smeb, being as strong as he is just able to take over the lane from there. And again, it's another massive show by Smeb. He goes like 9-0-1 in this game. The other game was like 10-3-5. I mean, Smeb's just been having like these just amazing games so far. Granted, this competition isn't exactly the strongest. I'm pretty sure I slurred that so hard that I don't even comprehend what I just said. It's very standard things that we've seen out of Pain Gaming as far as their composition goes. This game is much more dominant than the other Pain versus Q matchup in favor of Q. They just really close everything down. Kuro has a rough time in the mid lane for a bit, but he's able to kind of show up and get the kills that he needs in order to be useful for his team. And Prey really shows like how to use off like the dragon in this game. Instead of seeing it primarily auto-attack the towers early on, it's auto-attacking the champions under the towers, chunking them down, poking them down. They can't kill it fast enough to stop the poke, and so they get forced off the tower. It's very good Mordekaiser snowballing play. It's a very smooth chain of pressuring the objectives. Ku really showing how to properly use this Mordekaiser, both mechanically and in terms of macro play. So this is a very good game to look and really understand how to use Mordekaiser within his current state. The next game after this one is Flash Wolves versus Pain, or not Pain, Ku, excuse me. Now this one is a little weird to talk about just because there's some suspect things going on in the side of Ku. There's some fairly bad engages by Gorilla for no reason, it's just like, there's just some iffy stuff going on here. So the context for this game that they have to consider is that Ku beating CLG and Pain Gaming, they are now 4-1 in the group, and they only have one more game to play, and that's against Flash Wolves. They are guaranteed to get out of the group. Meanwhile, elsewhere, if Flash Wolves lose this game and CLG win their game against Pain, which is likely, there will be a tiebreaker between Flash Wolves and CLG for second place. So, if Ku doesn't want CLG to advance, they just lose this game. If they don't want to see tiebreakers, they just lose this game. There's no pressure on the Ku Tigers to really win this game, and it sort of shows up a lot with just some of the things that happen in this game. Flash Wolves get an early lead. Ku are actually doing very well in the laning phases. They have like this advantage, but then they like just immediately stop laning. They begin swapping, go for this tower trading game, which is exactly what NL wants on his Jinx. She's going to outdo that on Kalista, and so you see the Ku Tigers deviate from what they, how they could be winning, how they should be winning, into kind of giving away these advantages that they were building up in the game. And Flash Wolves, with a very good performance by Maple and NL, by the way. I mean, this is just some like amazing just like follow-up play where NL chunks down a target, he hits them with a rocket, and then Maple comes on in with a long, cleans someone up. Again, it's just a very good game with regards to that. And I also think I skipped on talking about CLG versus Flash Wolves. I think that was before this one because this is like the second last game of the day. But hey, that's the context. We'll talk about CLG and the Flash Wolves in just a moment. Again, very strong performance by these two. Carries Maple stepping up. There's been a little bit of hype generated by him, or for him, by the LMS community. And he really showed up on when he's playing like a LeBlanc, something that has been a comfort pick for him, I am told. Very well in this game. It's a fun LeBlanc game. Again, not so sure about how seriously Ku were taking this game, but that being said, very good performance by the Flash Wolves to punish Ku Ku's mistakes throughout this game. Aside from that, let's look at, I'm pretty sure I messed up the order on this, guys, but forgive me. Flash Wolves versus CLG. This is another messy game between the two. If you recall, CLG barely won the first game. That one was quite an extended affair in the mid game, with both sides kind of throwing the game back and forth to one another. This one is much more definitive for the Flash Wolves, and L actually gets a pentakill in this game, which, considering that, you know, he's up against Double Lift and Aframu, it's quite, you know, it's quite impressive within the context of like someone from NA who has knowledge of the NA scene, not really looking at the LMS scene. It's looking very good, but CLG at this point, they're just looking very weak. They've early picked the Echo in this game, and then they flex it over to Zion Spartan so he can play in the top against Stakes Malphite, but Echo doesn't do enough to punish Malphite to really, you know, make use of that. Top lane Echo as well, you know, kind of iffy with that. These double AP compositions, what we're seeing at Worlds is that they're not really working. CLG do this with the Echo and the Victor. Then we also saw Flash Wolves try that approach against Ku Tigers with a Lissandra top and... I cannot recall the mid lane that they use in that game right now, but these double AP compositions just don't seem to be working right now at the World Championship. Maybe it's just because teams aren't fully utilizing them to the best of their ability. Actually, that was Pain versus Ku. I think I said Flash versus Ku, something like that. That was my mistake. You know, we're not really seeing them work out so far, and so I wonder if teams will continue to, you know, like experiment with these kind of compositions, or whether they'll just like give up on like, okay, we're not going to do double teleport AP compositions anymore. Aframu and Double Lift, they get absolutely rocked by Maple in this game. Maple and NL begin to turn on in this game, and this carries on over to the Ku Tigers game. And I mean, this is an absolute wreck. The rush hour bot lane just, you know, bleeds from this. They got 2v2'd in their game against Ku Tigers by Smeb and Gorilla, and I mean, they basically get 2v2'd for pretty much the rest of the day. And I'll discuss that in a little more detail here. But this is where Flash Wolves take the victory over CLG rather decisively. So this is them, you know, showing improvement through the group stages, where CLG is getting worse as it goes on, and they are able to set themselves up to, they have to lose the Ku Tigers, then CLG have to beat Pain Gaming in order to force a tiebreaker. And then after the previously discussed game between CLG and the Ku Tigers, it goes on to basically a show match, which has no real damage as far as what happens within the group goes. I mean, who's getting out of the group has already been settled. This is just like, you know, a pride match for another win, a show match, and CLG go pretty much full show mode here. They lock in favorite champions there. They lock in Zion's Riven alongside Double Lift's Vayne. Pole Belter goes for a Morgana mid. Aftermath takes Bard. And it's a messy game, and you know, you can almost feel that CLG is somewhat half-heartedly playing this one, having just like convincingly lost their opportunity to advance out of the group stage after coming off really strong from the NA LCS playoffs in first place, undefeated. It's a very heartbreaking moment, and you know, they really lose this draft. I mean, they give Kami his Twisted Fate. They give Mylon Gangplank. They prioritize banning Mordekaiser, Malphite, and Darius rather than some of those champions that could have been better suited to prevent Pain from getting onto some of their stronger picks. And it just collapses for CLG here. And I mean, congratulations to the Brazilians for being the first wildcard team to win 2 games at Worlds, and for not finishing in last place. CLG do take last in this group with the events that have occurred, and Pain Gaming place in 3rd overall. Very good showing by the Brazilians. And had Pain Gaming actually been beaten the Flash Wolves, there could have been a tiebreaker series between those two teams to see who got in 2nd place. Or, you know, maybe, you know, if Ku beat the Flash Wolves and Pain had beaten the Flash Wolves, they would be advancing, both of which are actually plausible scenarios based on what happened, or based on some of the information that we're seeing here. I mean, Ku lost to the team that lost to the wild cards. Come on, guys. You know, this really was a closer group as far as the 2nd place seed was going. And actually, Flash Wolves do go out in 1st place just because they win head-to-head against the Ku Tigers. So there is that to be said. But it seems like Ku, just with how dominant they were against CLG and you know, how well they played otherwise, you know, they were probably the best team in this group. Finished 2nd place because they dropped their 2 games to the Flash Wolves. So with the games talked about, let's go ahead, round up the narrative real fast. So Pain Gaming shows up really well. They made a really good showing of how much Brazil has been improving as a region. Competing with NA, having really close games against the Flash Wolves, having a couple moments where they looked good against the Tigers, but ultimately being dismantled. Flash Wolves, they are the first Taiwanese team so far to advance out of group since like season 2 Worlds. They hasn't, ever since season 3 Worlds, no Taiwanese team has advanced out of the group stage. And by that I mean in season 3, no Taiwanese team advanced out of the groups. They've accomplished that, which is a huge boon for their region. They were able to beat out CLG for that position, although CLG was really just done at this point. And even doing it in first place, which is something even more remarkable given the fact that they had the second place Korean team, who was more likely reasonably the third place Korean team, within that group as well, and having defeated that Korean team in both of their sets against them. The first time being a bit more of like, Ku playing a little disrespectful, and the second time, Ku making some uncharacteristic mistakes, maybe sandbagging, maybe not, but very good showing up from Taiwan. And, there was genuinely, and you cannot dispute this, genuinely good performances, both from Maple and from NL, and Stake has shown up for this tournament in ways that a lot of people didn't anticipate, so kudos to him. The Ku Tigers, they comfortably get through this group. They showed that they could crush Shield, CLG, and that has a little less importance just given at the level that CLG started to play at some point. They had some difficulties closing out against the Flash Wolves. When Pain Gaming got a lead, there was a bit of issue there, but ultimately they showed that they were very decisive in the mid and late game, save for one game, which is the second matchup against Flash Wolves, which they lost. They would be advancing in second place, which may or may not benefit them. Depends on how the other groups fallen out, who advances first and second out of those. On paper, they're you as a second place team, you're going to be matched up against a first place team in another group, and so just like, hey, that could be a little, theoretically speaking, or on paper, it's like you're going to be in the disadvantageous matchup. But depending on who they get matched up against, maybe it stylistically favors them. It could be beneficial to them, but we don't know how this is going to happen until the quarterfinal stages are drawn. And then the biggest story of this groups is the failing of CLG. So CLG came on in here. They were the number 1 team in America. They looked really good. Again, going undefeated in the playoffs for the first time, looking like a very cohesive team. They just absolutely fall apart in this group stage, and I primarily think it's due to a couple of reasons. Primarily, lack of emotional fortitude or mental fortitude, and also just a inflexible pick and draft phase as far as what kind of style they were building up towards. So when we consider how this group was structured in the first week, CLG would play one game a day except for one day of the group stages. That was like their day off, if you will, against the other team. So they had one day to prepare for, they had to prepare for one match a day. There's time to recoup from that. There's time to get it all back together. They beat Flash Wolves, messy game. They beat Pain a little more decisively. Then they go up against Ku. Now, if you kept up with some of the interviews with the players, they were very confident. Zion Spartan in particular was, quite vocal about saying like they could handily beat Ku, and then they get absolutely crushed by the Ku Tigers in the game 1. Their composition basically dismantled. Okay, so you have a week to prepare for that. You have a week to kind of reset and come back and then come back with something different. They don't. They play the exact same kind of style that they do. They swapped out like the Azir for Veigar. I think Olaf for like Fiora, but they still keep like the fast push ADC. They still keep it a sieging mid laner who has incredible zone control, and who once again dismantled them at the start of the day. And now in the week 2 format, the entire group is settled within a day. This way, you get all your tiebreakers within a group settled that day as well. So that's why the format exists in this way. It's very similar to a super week where teams would have to prepare for like 4 games in 2 days, and that's just like crazy. In this case, you have 3 games against 3 different teams to prepare for within a week. So CLG immediately come on out. They don't change their tactic at all. Ku Tigers just shut them down with the same extremity that they did in their first meeting. And then I felt like, it seemed like CLG just from there was completely broken in terms of fortitude. Their play level was down. Like Doublelift and Aphromoo are not being the laners which we saw. They're not being the dominant carry force that they need to be, and they go through and they lose every single game day after losing the first one. Losing 2 back-to-back games, they go 2-4 in the group after starting 2-0 before they play the Coup Tigers. So I felt like CLG really got boned by this format. Now, as far as why it had such a drastic effect, you had to keep in mind that their sports psychologist, who, the team moved into their house during the LCS season, isn't there with them right now. He's not at the world stage with them, so he's not there to work with the team how he usually is. So that might have had an impact that has adversely affected the players. I think that their coaching staff seemed ill prepared for the tournament, or was at least unwilling to change up their things. Again, they stuck to these same tactics, these same strategies, either thinking that, okay, we got to save the stuff. We got to save the stuff for the quarterfinals. We can't show our hand just yet. We can get through with these things. I know we can. And then they were losing with that because teams knew what to expect. They were not being surprised because there was no curveball being thrown. And then CLG they lose. Really, it is a collapse of CLG. Whether it's because, as far as the team composition goes, whether it's because they prepared no other team compositions, or whether because CLG was too stubborn in terms of management to change up their tactics, I don't know. Either way, it's in the former case, that's just poor preparation. It's like the meta is vastly different. You have to have other kind of compositions and styles that you can play. That just has to be a flexibility that you have at this tournament. Or on the other end of the spectrum, it's a risky call. It might pay off, but at this point, you just have to do it just so that you can get out of these group stages. It's do or die at a certain point, and CLG apparently chose to die. So it's quite disappointing, just considering how well CLG were looking coming into this group, and again finishing last place, even beneath the wild card region. It's a heavy pill for the team to swallow, but maybe we'll see what this what further developments within CLG that this causes. Has been a very important Worlds for them. It's very telling about some of the issues which they're still having at some fundamental core within them, and we're going to keep on seeing how this goes for them. So that is the Group A roundup recap of Worlds 2015. It's been very exciting so far. Congratulations to the Flash Wolves and Coup Tigers for advancing out of the group. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the breakdown of Group B once all those crazy shenanigans get on out.